Every night is the Rangers Journal night.
Evening, folks. Welcome to the Rangers Journal Q&A with myself, Richard. Got the infamous Doug and brand new podcaster, Alan, on his first podcast. So please be gentle in the comments, or don't, depending how it's going on. How you doing, Alan? You all right?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not doing too bad. Half past week. Looking forward to the
Yes.
weekend. Looking forward to
Yes.
Thursday-ish.
Well,
Yeah.
aye-ish.
What about yourself, Doug? You good, pal?
Yeah, I'm doing not too bad. Thanks, yourself.
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Looking forward to getting into it. Going to try and be as positive as possible with this podcast, because the last few that we've done has been a bit negative. We've all had time to sort of mull over everything that happened over the weekend, so I don't want to go over it too much, but now that we've had time to digest it and assess, right, while some of the comments come in from the viewers, which we'll get to, by the way, if you have any questions for the team. But for you guys, and tell you what, I'll come to you, Alan, straight away. Did you see any glimmer of hope? More so probably that Martin's sort of style was taking shape in any way. What do you thought?
I thought probably the first 45 minutes, I thought we were actually all right. And realistically, we probably could have been out of sight. Miovski takes his chance, which he should really do better with. You've got the penalty miss, the Cornelius handball, whether it's a handball or not, I'm still not convinced. But I thought the first 45 we actually played all right. A couple of nice moves and things like that, but then for some reason the second half they just come out and seem to stop doing that and seem to resort to type going back to how it has been. And I know he uses that word anxiety and stuff like that and things, but I didn't see anything in the first half that would have caused any anxiety, for us to all of a sudden resort back the way, and then come the end, it's just throwing everything at the wall and hoping something sticks in it. I think every attacking player on and then it's a defender that pops up with a winner. But I thought the first 45 was probably the most, I wouldn't say best we've played, but I would say most kind of enjoyable, I would say, under him so far.
Try and unmute myself. Yeah, it was really. I mean, I don't know if it's an amazing thing to say. Like, we performed well in the first half against Livy, who are a good solid team, but they're just brand new up from the Championship. You know what you're going to get. So, how good of a statement is it to say that we performed well in 45 minutes? But yeah, I kind of agree with your points, mate. It's just that anxiety word does rear its head. But the first half was decent. So do you think that's a glimmer for you, Doug, about if, Martin's style, shape, the pain that we're going to have to go through? Do you think we're getting close to the end of it and we're going to start seeing better performances than what we saw in the first half and more consistently over the entire 90 minutes? What do you reckon, mate?
I don't think we can, for me anyway, I don't think we can say that after the one game, because there was too much of the game that also followed the patterns that we've seen up until now. I mean, it's literally, on one hand, yeah, it's great. They kept on going, they kept pushing, and they got a winning goal. But then at the same time, it was a last-minute goal, and there's an element of luck to that, rather than having played well and beaten the team well. We've seen that pattern play out before as well, even though we played better in that game. The pattern of struggling and then Martin abandoning all else and just throwing everybody on for the last 10 minutes, creating chaos and getting a goal out of it. We've seen that against St Mirren. We've seen him do that against other teams. So I don't think it's really an endorsement of, Martin's system or anything like that. I think it's more a case of when you've got a team where ultimately we still have a team of players who are of a decent quality and level when compared to the players in our league, and particularly with all the respect in the world to a team like Livingston. And even if they're playing badly, they're going to play good every so often. And so we need to see more games where we do show patterns of play and progression, which do show being dominant. And ultimately, we start winning games by 2 or 3 goals, and a bit more comfortably. And then we'll be able to start saying, right, this is actually Russell Martin's system that's doing that. It's not just the players have had a good day. Because that pattern could continue, bad game. Oh, they've had a good game, bad game. Oh, there's a good half. That's what I would expect to see of a struggling team, that they will have good games now and again. So that's the real challenge. And specifically in the league as well, because, we've seen before us play really well in European games or play really well in Old Firm games, but then still struggle in the bread and butter games. So that's what I want to see is in the coming games we've got over October. We've got a cluster of what you'd like to think would be sort of fairly standard league games. So we want to see that progression and that development continue in those, and for us to pick up more results.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But so with that then, the performances and the results, so the fans are more than against Martin, right? But we're stuck with him for the time being. Everybody said, he said it, Coisty said it on TalkSport, Andy Halliday said it, that, if he wins 6 in a row, as soon as that 7th is a poor performance and a draw, they'll go, see, told you. Do you think that's going to be fair? If he starts to pick up results, performances improve, we can't expect to go unbeaten for the entire season. So what do you think for yourself is going to be, a change of opinion for him to perhaps be accepted? Is it purely just going to be based on the results, or performances as well? Because we're not going to get results every single week, unfortunately. But if we start seeing, for me, if we start seeing improvements and we start seeing what he has been brought in to do, what Thelwell said, the type of football he's promised, that what we're going to do, if we start seeing that and have a little bit more belief that we're going to get results, we have been unlucky, decisions will go against us, that's just going to happen, that's football, then I'll start to perhaps, give Martin a little bit of leeway, and maybe the booing will subside a little bit. Yeah, that's how I look at it. What about yourself, Alan? How do you feel about it? What do you think it's going to take for the fans to, get off Martin's back a little bit to maybe see where we're going to progress, if at all? Or do you think he's had it and that's it?
My worry is I think he's had it and that's it. I think because there was such a backlash to his appointment originally, I think no matter what he does, last week they've got people commenting the minute he appears with glasses and everything, like they're just looking for faults in whatever he does. To me, I think he needs to go on a run, and there needs to be that 45 minutes against Livingston all of a sudden needs to become the norm, if you like, instead of the outlier. I would say I win and win convincingly, but how realistic, as you say, is that? I think he just needs to try and put a run of wins between now and, well, at least when as we are to the end of the month anyway. When you look at the fixtures coming up, the fact he's obviously got 2 European games and another international break put in, I think a lot will depend on how Thursday goes and then how Sunday goes with the international break. I think if it continues the way it has been and there's still no signs of improvement, I do worry for him. But I do also think that it's cards marked, if you like, the fact that there was such a backlash with him coming in, the start that he's had. I just can't see him getting out of it. I just think, as the pundits and yourselves have said, win 6 games in the trot, you lose the 7th, it's just going to come back at him. The fact it was not even a minute after we got a winner, a 93rd minute winner, it's in the chance of Martin, away you go, if you like, or starting, that's the go-to. I worry about him moving forward, put it that way.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for him, there's no doubt in that, mate. What about yourself, Doug, before I move on to some of the panel questions? You got anything to add to that? What's, for you, what would be deemed acceptable for you to sort of give him a little bit more leeway, if at all?
It's going to be very difficult for him to win back the majority of the fan base. I mean, this is a manager that, unlike most, started from a negative position because large sections of the fan base didn't want him in the position before he even started the job. Usually, your manager has the benefit of the doubt, and folk are like, okay, we'll get behind them and we'll go there. But Martin didn't even have that to start with, so he's going to struggle because a lot of those people are feeling pretty not happy, but they're feeling pretty vindicated in their opinions right now. And then the other half that did take the usual, right, well, let's just get behind them, have obviously turned. Like you say, he'll only ever be a bad performance or a loss away from people kind of going straight back to, I told you he was no good. So I find it very difficult to see him turning it around at all. But if he's going to, then the only thing that will ultimately really, to the core of people, change their minds is if he wins trophies. If we're sitting here, I think it was John who put a comment in earlier saying something like, "Oh, everyone will be, or everyone will be turned around if we were sitting here with a League Cup." And yeah, there will be a bit of that. And if we're sitting here at the end of the season and he's got a league trophy, say he wins the League Cup and then he goes and wins the league, then people will be like, all right, okay, he's turned that around, and he'll then be, and he'll have receipts to go, well, look, my system works. But even then, I think if he's done it by scraping there, by us continuing to play poorly and being a little bit, misconnected on the pitch, and it just so happens that Celtic have collapsed as well. Obviously they dropped points at the weekend, so that's helped make the picture a bit better. So if let's say that they get worse, and it's a combination of just us managing to scrape by, we get another 20 last-minute goals, and they're not getting them. Even then, you'd still have people going, right, but won the league, but we were lucky, but it was just because they collapsed. But so he will have all of that, even if he wins trophies, I think, because of how far to the sort of negative things have gone. So yeah, the ultimate thing will be he'll have to start winning. He'll have to start doing it all the time, and he'll have to start winning trophies. But also have performances on top of that as well, and then eventually, maybe in 2 years' time when he's got a double, 2 in a row, I should say, folk will then, it'll really have sunk in. But I just feel he's so far in the negative, because in my entire life I've never seen a manager, certainly of Rangers, in this kind of position of universal, like, just get out the door. So yeah, for me, I think he could be sitting here in 2 years' time having won 2 in a row, and there will be some people only just coming round.
It's going to be difficult for him, without a shadow of a doubt. But we just have to wait and see. And at this moment in time, it's almost praying for a miracle, but we'll see what happens. So, got your comments coming in. Get your questions into the panel. Try and get through as many of them as possible. And let's start with this one from Scott Shields. Pass on to you, Alan. Would you drop Suter for Giga or Fernandes to see if he forms a stronger partnership with Cornelius? How do you feel about doing that at this moment in time? Pass it to you, Alan.
I'm not Suter's biggest fan, but I would like to see us try a back three, in which case I would look to maybe bring Giga back. Fernandes, we just haven't seen enough of. I mean, he's played in the cup game, and really that's about it, which is a whole other question entirely. Why then you're spending 3 million on the guy, and a lot of times he's not even making the bench? So that's probably another question that you'd want to ask. But for me, I don't know if I would necessarily drop Suter, but I would look to maybe try and change the formation as such, to maybe try and accommodate a bit. Because I feel as if we're just completely overrun and exposed so many times. Every game you're seeing it, simple ball through the middle of the park. I just feel maybe a back three and things could possibly try and alleviate that.
Yeah, fair. I'm not too sure I would myself. Well, Fernandes, I probably wouldn't, because I've not seen him at all. which is quite alarming. How much money we've spent on a guy that barely even makes the bench, to be honest. But we need to see him at some point to see what exactly we've spent our money on. Would I drop Suter to bring in Fernandez at this moment in time? I'm not sure I would, to be honest, because clearly he's not deserving of it, so he's not showing it in training. I think he's going to have to wait for an injury or suspension or be brought in, the Scottish Cup game when we're playing, hopefully not Queen's Park this year, but someone worthy of him, being brought in to stake a claim and show us what he can do. But I think this Suter and Cornelius partnership is still quite, still in its infancy. And I think it's got a little bit of potential to be quite solid. So I think it needs a little bit more time, a few more games to see where it's really going to go. I think Suter and Giga had its chance, wasn't quite working. So I think Suter and Cornelius deserves a few more games the way that partnership does to see where it really goes. So that's where I'm thinking about that. What about yourself, Doug? Do you have an answer for that?
Well, Fernandez is currently our third top scorer, so there's a reason to bring him in. But I actually advocated that when I did my lowdown for the Livingston game. I'd actually had brought Giga in for Suter to try, just because we have been having defensive issues. So I did think there was merit to maybe trying some other combinations to see how they fit. Giga's the obvious one, just because he's the one that's played. He, in theory, has the biggest ceiling. But on the other hand, there's a real I think, sort of thrust to be developing Fernandez, because he's our player. Giga, his loan will be up, so he won't be here probably next season. Suter's contract is up, so he potentially isn't here next season either. And Cornelius is also on a loan. So Fernandez is the only central defender who, along with the still here in Clinton Enciala, who's actually guaranteed to be our player next year unless we actively sell them. So there is merit to, I think, trying other things. Because if they're not going to be given, I think it's sort of in a really kind of interesting place right now. Because I kind of talked about it when we brought Cornelius in. I wondered whether it would be Giga or Suter that got dropped. Because at that point, Giga was probably still just the better, or was in just the better form. But Suter's, when Tavernier's not been playing, Suter's been the captain. And a manager doesn't give a player the captaincy if he's not or at least in my mind, if he's not someone that's in the captain's and the manager's mind, it's a solidified, he's a first player on my team sheet kind of guy. So on Suter's in a position that he's obviously in favour with the manager, but potentially not with the club overall, because we're seemingly not looking like we're offering him a new contract. So the defence is an interesting one, because that's going to be something that I think will become more of a thing as the season develops. Pretty much the entire defence isn't there next year, so you could argue it doesn't really matter because we'll be starting fresh regardless. But yeah, I do think that there is reasons because of that to maybe try some of the other combinations. Because if we are going to keep any of these players, then we need to see. We need to see are they worth potentially buying. I think most of us said at the beginning of the season, Giga will never get bought. He's a £10 million player. Well, we've just bought a player for £8 million, so with add-ons up to 10 million. So perhaps buying a 10 million player isn't completely unrealistic if the board think that it's worth it. And if they think it's worth spending 10 million on a player that has barely played in the last sort of year and a bit, and as a striker has no goals, then who knows what they think is worth it. So yes, I think there is some benefit to trying some of the other combinations and seeing what works, particularly when our defence isn't the strongest.
Yeah. So just going on to that, Alan, there's been a question here about what do we feel about the Enciala situation. So just sticking with the defence for a minute. How do you feel about that? For me, it feels like the guy's just simply, just doesn't fit Martin doesn't like the look of him whatsoever. I don't feel like he's had really a chance. Maybe he's seen him that game where he subbed off from Ferguson. I think that's a bit harsh for a young kid. I mean, say young, he's 22 actually, to be fair. But it seems a bit harsh for me. But what about yourself? What do you think?
Yeah, I also think it's quite harsh. I mean, he seemed to make his mind up about him very quickly as well, without really, like, he was coming in and giving out all the talk about Kieran Dowell, how everybody's got a fresh start and things, and Nsiala just seems to have had the mind made up on him very quickly. If it is in relation to the Kilmarnock game when he was took off quite early, I'd like to think, looking at him after that, he kind of bounced back and came back in games, and I thought actually played quite well. He's certainly not shown up any worse than what our defence has looked like so far this season. I do think that he's been given a bit of a rough end of the stick, if you like. I think I'm not saying he's. I mean, it could be one of those options, is it all of a sudden became a better player because he's not involved, kind of thing, or people looking at it that he could be the answer. But I certainly would have had him there or thereabouts. I certainly haven't seen anything so far this season for any of the new players or anything like that that's came in that's made us think that Nsiala's not up there with them or anything. Like, I would have had him involved, certainly. He wouldn't have been bombed out as quickly for me anyway.
Yeah, it does seem, well, I say it seems harsh, but we don't know what he's seen. Surely he's probably given him a chance in training. I had a look at him the same way as what he supposedly did with Proper. So we just don't know. But for me as well, like we've got a guy in that we spent $3.5 million for that's younger. Perhaps has got a bit more potential. So I think he deserves a shout way before Nsiala does. But that being said, it does seem a bit harsh on the kid for me. So sort of staying along the same sort of lines, we'll go into Shona, who's made a comment here about consistency in midfield and defence, whoever it is, constantly changing doesn't help. So bear in mind what we've just been saying about, perhaps changing personnel in defence and stuff like that. Do you sort of agree with that? I personally do. But right now, I can't tell you who I feel our midfield, especially who our starting midfielders are. I've got ones who we think they want it to be, but they haven't really merited it so far for me. So as much as we need consistency, but they also need to earn it. They need to earn the chance to stay in the starting 11 for me. So yes, it doesn't help, but the players aren't helping it either. What about yourself, Doug? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I've advocated consistency from early on in the season, when it was just little teething problems we were marking things as. I do think consistency helps to breed a better team, especially obviously when you've got so many new players. They start to learn about one another. They start to develop understandings of, oh, he likes these types of runs, or oh, I can expect him to be in this type of area of the pitch when I'm here, and you get little twos and combinations of threes where players, as I say, start to really understand one another. We talk about I think strikers and centre backs in particular in this regard often as pairs. Obviously you've got players like Miller and Boyd and McCoist and Haitley, and you talk about them often in combination because they were so effective as a pair, and you only get that by playing together regularly. I do think that there's been a little bit more consistency than perhaps some might think. I mean, the defence has been pretty consistent in terms of selection for a while now. Obviously, the change for Cornelius is kind of been the main change. In midfield, if you look at the last few games, I mean, Asgard played obviously Livingston. He also played Hibs Hearts. He played against Celtic. He played against Bruges. So he's been pretty much a mainstay for the last couple of weeks. As has Diomande. He was obviously only taken out after his red card, but otherwise he again played against Celtic and Hearts and Hibs. And I think Raskin's played the majority of games other than when he's been in the stand. So I think on the whole we have been pretty consistent in selection. There's only really been one or two areas I think that have kind of really been unsettled. So Gassama has pretty much played all the time, and the other winger, I think that's the main position that's really kind of been up and down and chopped and changed, because he's kind of bounced between playing Moore or playing Ant-Man, or playing Dowell as it was earlier on in the season. So I think that's the main position that's kind of been a little bit all over the place. But I think the majority of the rest, obviously, we've had some changes up front in terms of personnel. They were enforced by having sold players and bought players. But I think on the whole, we have been pretty consistent, which for me is actually another one of the concerning aspects, because, again, a team who we've largely played this similar selection of players should be improving together, and they largely haven't been.
Yeah, I got to admit, apart from, Butland, Gassama, I think Magoma at the minute as well, his form, he deserves to maintain his place and stuff like that. Those up front, I don't think you can make a case for, in the sense of they haven't been given anything, they haven't shown us. They've seen it in glimpses but Miovski, does he deserve to earn his place? Perhaps, but not through his performance, because we haven't really given him anything to feed off of, to be honest. He'd go well, but for me, Asgard shown it in glimpses, but not enough. If he was dropped, it wouldn't be a surprise. Raskin probably deserves to keep his place because we know what he's capable of and he has performed for us. So for me, I think there's only about three or four individuals that I think, okay, probably earn their place to start. The rest is up for grabs. And I do agree with you about the right wing. I think Ant-Man's shown again when he first came in that he's got the potential to nail that down. But I don't think he's done enough yet to actually cement it. Which, going on to that position in particular, I know it's a big topic, a big discussion point. So I'll bring to you, Alan, as your first time on the podcast, so I'll hit you a hard one. Finlay Curtis, what for you? I mean, we can't really say what has he got to do to earn a game, but why do you think that he's not been brought on? We've all said the rumours about Moore, having to just have a certain number of minutes or games. I'm not sure that would be 100% certain. Otherwise, it's just not fair in the rest of the squad. But surely he's earned a few minutes now, hasn't he? Because Moore hasn't done enough, in my opinion. Or would you disagree?
No, I agree completely. I find it really strange, especially earlier on in the season. Martin spoke so well of Curtis, and he was really liked how his attitude and everything. And obviously, the Panathinaikos game at the start, it started really well. St Mirren came on and get the goal. To me, I don't see what Mikey Moore's bringing. And yes, I suppose you have to take into account he is a young boy as well. He's 18 as well. But I think it's hard to dispel those rumours that he's not playing because Tottenham want him to get experience in some of the big games and things like that, because I don't see what he's offering other than that. He doesn't look to me a goal threat. He doesn't look... For me, I was expecting the young boy maybe with a box of tricks and things like that. He doesn't look to try and get by his man much. And I don't see what he's brought at all, really. And to really kind of... to keep a boy like Curtis, even... I'm not expecting Curtis to come in and start, but I do think Curtis is a decent option in the bench. And to me, watching him and what I've seen of him, the boy looks a decent finisher as well. He looks as if he can take a chance. You see, if a chance falls to him, it's like, I think it was at the fourth against Alloa. The minute he was running in and goal, you were quite confident he was going to take it. And a lot of times where Martin's throwing everything at the wall when he's trying to get a goal late on and things, to me, Curtis looks a good option to put on, because I don't see... We're a team that I don't see a lot of goals coming from us at all. And when you've got somebody like that there, to me, it doesn't make sense not to use him.
Yeah, it's a hard one without knowing a lot of what's going on the training pitch, which is supposed to be amazing by all accounts. It's difficult to say. Maybe Moore is showing that he's, deserves it more on, but he's not doing it on the pitch where it matters for me. So I think Curtis is going to earn more minutes, or at least a crack at it. And it's going to bring me on to somebody else. I'm going to throw at you, Doug, if you don't mind. So something that Shona, I believe, mentioned about youth in general. I can't find the comment now. But one of the things that's been crying out for years is the lack of opportunities that we've given our kids coming up through the youth. And the standout for many a year, we've all been told, is Bailey Rice. What has that guy got to do to? What do you think it is? He needs to develop more? If so, why is he not being sent out on loan? What's he got to do to earn a few minutes?
I think the biggest question is the one is maybe why hasn't he been allowed to go out on loan? Particularly now we've got this new sort of system that we can just pop players out and easily take them back if we need them. For me, the sort of rumoured thing with Rice was that he was very good at certain things, a good technical player, but he's not that great off the ball. And I have seen some of that in some of the games he's played. I think there's areas there to improve. So the question, therefore, is more, well, what's the club doing to help him improve in those areas so that he can become a player to challenge? We brought in a lot of midfielders over the summer, so I don't think it's necessarily a surprise that he's not playing because he didn't play that much previously. We brought in an extra selection of players on top of that. So for me, the big question is, well, what are the club doing to get him in a position that he can challenge for a spot? I mean, ultimately, I was talking. We were talking a little bit about youth in one of the group chats today, and ultimately, Rangers as a football club don't have a great culture for bringing forward young players because we're about winning above all else, and that creates a low tolerance for mistakes, a low tolerance for poor performance, and that's not an environment that's conducive to bringing through young players who make more mistakes on average, whose form will be up and down on average. You need to have a will to nurture these players and to see them through that period of time when they're coming into the first team and establishing themselves. There's also there's also the aspect of the pressure that's on the manager. So one of the players we talked about in our chat this afternoon was Amad Diallo. So Amad Diallo came in, played a little bit. He had a couple of games where he was particularly poor, and then he just basically didn't play until after the split. When he came back in, played a few games. And I kind of made the point that that was obviously the year we went on the Europa League run to the final. So that year, Scott Wright, not including the qualifiers, played 9 Europa League games, including the final. Whereas, Amad Diallo was an unused substitute throughout. No, I don't think it's hugely controversial to suggest that Amad Diallo is a better player than Scott Wright, all in. And I don't think it's necessarily hugely controversial to say probably maybe even was then at the time. Not in all things. I mean, I was always a Scott Wright fan, to be honest. He's not the greatest player, but I thought he did a job. And in Europe, he was often picked because he's good in terms of being positional, at being no nonsense, covering for defensive stuff, which on the right side is important when you've got Tavernier pushing up. And that's why he played, because he was the safe choice, because he would do those things. He would do exactly what you told him to do, hold his position and defend well, but he wasn't necessarily as big of a flair player, although he did contribute in attacking formats as well. Leipzig game, he set up Kamara's goal, so it's not as if he was no good at that. But then at the same time, when we look back at that final, could the flair of an Amad Diallo have maybe changed that game that little bit extra attacking wise? Had he maybe rolled the dice and went, right, I'm going to put this young guy in, I'm going to have faith in this talented young guy who has scored goals in the Europa League prior for Man United, played for Man United in the Europa League. There's a mindset there to choosing that player, one between those two players. And I think managers are more inclined to take the safe option because they don't want the potential hassle that will come with if they take the risky option and it doesn't work, then people will give it to them more in the neck if they don't, win the games. So I think, for me, I think that probably plays in the mind of managers when the options are, well, I pick this young, excited, but untried player who's maybe not as good at things like the off-the-ball stuff, or will I pick this other player who isn't as good, maybe, isn't as exciting, certainly in the eyes of the fans, but it's probably going to give me a more solid, boring 7 out of 10 performance. So I think there's a bit of that. And when it comes to choosing between Mikey Moore, I think it's maybe just a bit of Mikey Moore's the bigger name. He is more experienced than Finlay Curtis at the end of the day. Not by a huge amount, but again, he's played in the Europa League. He's played in the Premier League. And so I think that there's maybe just a bit there where he's picking the player that he thinks is the safer option. When it comes to Finlay Curtis, it's interesting when you look at kind of the ratings he's got sort of on average over the game so far. From FotMob, him and Moore have got pretty similar average ratings. And even our own in-house ratings, there's only sort of one mark in between them. Mikey Moore's got an average of 4.9, and Finlay Curtis has got an average of 5.6, so not quite one above. And they've played 7 and 6 had 7 and 6 appearances. Because the last few games that Finlay Curtis did appear in, he didn't play that well, and so I think he's had his flash at the beginning where he did play really well, and then he's played a few games and then maybe not played so well, and so he's kind of fallen out of favour. So I think there's a bit of that, and if a manager is going to start playing more young players, and we're going to start having more young players coming through, it's going to take a manager that is willing to take that risk and to take that burden on their back if things don't work out, and to back the player and go, well, I'm going to play him again anyway. I mean, in a way, what he's doing with Moore is I'm going to play the player anyway because I've got faith he'll do well, and I'll do that. It's just unfortunate that right now he's doing it with the guy that's going to go off and be great for another team rather than develop him great for us.
I get what you're saying, and I'm going to counter it slightly. Everything you're saying is fair, but you're right. The pressure's on the manager to get results, so he doesn't want to risk putting in young players. But at the same time, we need to develop our own players. Player training model, all that, we need to develop our own players. The fans understand that young players are going to make mistakes. Okay, we do get it. It's up to the manager to understand the right time when to play those type of players, when to let them make mistakes. Choosing the right games, the right pressure points when the fans are, not totally on their back. So maybe that's a point why he's not playing right now. But then you could argue the same. Well, Moore is, and he's a young player. So
could I come back to a point that's just appearing in the comments there?
Go for it, mate.
A comment there from Great Wall of Canada. He got put on against a 5-0 against Bruges. That doesn't mean he can't come on and play well. And be rated to play well. I do think, particularly for our rating, because I've had this argument with Mitch, and I think he has a tendency to underrate substitutes slightly. But it doesn't mean he can't come on and play well. We were losing against St Mirren when he came on, and he made the difference. He came on and made the difference. So I just wanted to push back on that point a little bit. I think you can come on, and that's why we like Curtis, because he's come on in games and made the difference. So I don't think that's necessarily a big negative there, because it doesn't affect him. He can still come on and play well. So
just to finish up, I agree with you, mate, but finish up what I was saying about players like Curtis coming on, making mistakes, and it's going to take something as well to the fans will accept a player, especially a homegrown player brought up, diehard Rangers fan coming through the academy. The fans will accept mistakes. They won't accept losing, but they will accept mistakes by players. But it'll also take, and something that's definitely not happening right now, is accountability from the manager to, if we get a draw and things aren't going well, and people ask, well, I'm trying to, blood through a young kid here who's going to make mistakes, who's not tracking black. You'd sort of accept that a little bit more, not to totally put the loss on because we're bleeding one young kid, but for him to come out and say that and say, yes, he's going to make mistakes, you will understand it. because we all want it. We all want the young kids to do well. Now, there'll have to be a limit to that and say, right, it's been 2 seasons now, he's still making these same mistakes. He's either not learning or not being coached. Similar, I guess, to what you say about Ross McCausland. So he looked like he reached his ceiling. So we said, thanks very much. Time for you to move on and we bring the next youngsters through. But moving away from the young kids, time to get you. Hope you're not falling asleep there, Alan. I know it's been a minute since you said it. But moving on to what's going to come up in the next few weeks, next month or so. You got any sort of bold predictions on how you think things are going to play out, in your opinion, either just focusing domestically or in Europe, particularly with Sturm Graz game coming up, or both?
Well, I think Europe is probably going to be quite difficult this season. I think I can't see us getting much these next 2 games away from home. I mean, I think Sturm Graz are sitting second in their league now. Seem to be doing quite well and things. I'm not that confident for Thursday. I think that's what's also going to then go on against Martin, because he's not getting a run of league games to try and get a bit of momentum going. So he could lose it with Sturm Graz, but then he's got Falkirk away. Hopefully get 3 points away Falkirk, and then you've got the international break. But then I think it's at Dundee United at home and Kilmarnock at home back to back, and then your Hibs away before the semi-final. With Bran squeezed in as well. I don't know. I'd like to think we're more than capable, surely to God, more than capable of getting maximum points in the league. But the way we've been playing, you just don't know. But I think Europe is going to be. I personally don't have the confidence for it, and I don't see where the players are going to get it from at the moment. Hopefully they prove me wrong, but I'm not very hopeful for our European campaign this year. I think this one might just need to kind of take a back seat now to try and get domestic, and hopefully we can start making some ground up in the league, because that's our bread and butter. That's what we need to get back doing. And I think if, like as was said earlier, if Martin's able to get a run going, beat Celtic in the semi-final, and all of a sudden you're in a cup final, things might start looking a wee bit different for him. It's amazing what a run of wins does, and especially if one's in an Old Firm semi-final. But I think Europe is going to be quite difficult in the run-up of games, especially 2 away games. It's 2 difficult places to go, I think, as well. As much as I don't think they've started well in the Europa League, but I don't think we can go into any European game now feeling quite confident, which is a shame considering our last few years in Europe were used to be Rangers Thursdays that everybody was buzzing for it. So we'll wait and see, but I think this year Europe will need to take a back seat for the domestic front, I think.
Yeah, I think you might be right though, but I'm going to ask you just another question before I come to you, Doug, with the same question. Are you expecting to see sort of maybe, I don't want to say 2 different teams in the sense of, particularly under Gerrard, we had a team that would play in Europe, Scott Wright, for example, and then we had a team that would play domestically. Do you think Russell Martin's going to lean towards that and have a different, I don't want to say style of play, but maybe a different formation and a different set of players that he would use regularly in Europe as compared to domestically?
Possibly. I think it's obviously been difficult because obviously Aarons was suspended right away, and then obviously Dio's going to be suspended for Thursday as well. So right away he's having to make changes. But I don't know. I think he seems to be quite set on quite a lot of players. I think his mind's made up on quite a lot of players. For me, I've not really seen anything in what Asgard is bringing to the team. I think he's got ability, but I could be wrong. But to me, I thought he was brought in as going to be a sort of creative force for us. To me, he looks as if he's just going back the way all the time. There was several instances on Sunday that he had opportunities to even get a shot away, and he's not doing it. Like, I don't see what he's bringing to the team as such, and he'd be one of the ones I'd be looking to kind of rest and take out at the moment, because I think he's a young boy as well. So you don't want to try and obviously get a bit of confidence in him somehow, but he's just, to me, I don't see what he's bringing at the moment. But I think he's quite set in his ways, though, that I think it will be similar. I can't see him making too many wholesale changes, apart from maybe Miovski for Big Chamiti up front, like he did last week. I could maybe see him doing that again come Thursday, because I think Chamiti looks quite decent with his hold-up play and things like that from what I've seen. I don't know what he's like yet as a finisher or anything like that. It remains to see, but his hold up play looks quite good, and we've really missed that since, well, Morelos really, and that was a lot of where we got a benefit from in Europe, being able to hold the ball up and give defenders problems and things like that. So maybe see the likes of Chamiti and that coming in, but I don't think it'll be wholesale by any means.
Now, for me, I think he's probably the one that I probably am expecting a change, is Chamiti for Miovski, to be honest, but who knows. So just to finish us off, Doug, I'll go to you with the same sort of lines. What are you expecting for the next few games, both domestically and in Europe? You think that we're going to start building things, or are you expecting more of the same? Any more predictions? And also, if you think that he might play differently in Europe as opposed to domestically?
Well, I think playing in Europe demands difference, just because you're generally playing a higher quality team, and generally they will play in a more continental style. So that necessitates playing slightly differently, in my opinion. It doesn't necessarily mean he needs to change the personnel per se. Again, we've seen in the past, particularly in the European run in 2022, he would play the same team from league to European match, but you would think they'd been replaced with clones, because the European game they'd be playing like they were vintage Barcelona, but they'd have struggled the weekend before against like Falkirk or something. And on that point, I think that there still remains the opportunity for the team to lift themselves in Europe, because they, again, have had a tendency to do that. As poor as Genk was, it was a game that they could have gotten back in if they'd found their footing and got themselves up a gear. But the two games they've got, Sturm Graz and Brann, both fall in to a similar category as Genk, in my opinion, and that both solid sides, but both teams that we should be looking at trying to get results from. They're both away, so that's more difficult in that regard. But I think we need to get at least 3 points from one of these two games, having dropped points against Genk. That should have been a game we'd marked as a win. So we need to try and be positive, I think, and go at these teams. We've got a good record against Austrian teams. Obviously, people mentioning Sturm Graz are sitting second in the league. I believe they're second behind Rapid Vienna, who we've played a couple of times in Europe and have majoritively got the better of. So, as I say, I think we should be looking to do the same for that. In terms of the league games, there's no choice in terms of he needs to win them all. We need to be building in the league. We've obviously we're starting from a negative, essentially, because we're kind of taking this Livingston game as hopefully the turning point in our league's season actually starting. So having dropped so many points, he needs to be getting results in these games. And Falkirk is a good game to be going into. Right, we should be looking to win this one. Dundee United will be more difficult, but it is at home, so again, that should be a game that we're looking to win. And he's got Kilmarnock, which again, we're at home, we should be looking to win. And I think he needs to get wins in all of those games. Otherwise, again, what we talked about earlier, if he wins one, draws one, loses another, he'll be no further forward in the eyes of the fans. The kind of interesting point is that he's obviously got this international break in the middle. So in between Falkirk and Dundee United, you'll have this period of time, presumably, to work with the team more, and so in theory he can work on system and all that stuff and look to improve it. But on the other hand, there's been rumours that there's a review scheduled for that period of time, and I think a lot of fans are holding on to the hope that the outcome of that review is you've been rubbish, you're sacked. So you could, in theory, if he does, if he doesn't get results from Sturm Graz and Falkirk, we could be sitting here in that break talking about who our next manager is going to be. So it's I kind of said it about the period following the previous international break, that it was a key period for him, and because he's not really picked up hugely, it continues to be a key period for him. So it'll be interesting. My overall prediction is I think we'll continue to kind of lumber on. We'll play well here and there, but will not be great, because I think the issues that we have will continue, because he's so far proven to have the stubbornness that everyone was concerned that he would have. So I don't really see him changing enough to have a big enough impact for us to change dramatically. So I think we'll get a draw for one, we'll get a win in another, we'll probably lose another.
Yeah, it's pretty much likely, and I hope that review does happen. I think we can all see on the faces of Stuart and Thelwell as it panned to them at the 89th minute on Sunday what they were thinking, and I think that goal probably saved them from making, I don't want to say a difficult decision, but saved them from making a decision at least that day for a few more weeks at least, depending on how results go. But we'll wrap it up there. So thanks very much for everybody for your comments and questions. Sorry if we didn't get around to yours. Doug, it's been a pleasure as always. Alan, well done on your first podcast, mate. You've not had any stick in the comments as yet, but you never know, on Facebook or Twitter or something. You probably had loads.
Well, there's always time. There's always time.
That's it. And the best comment of the day from Polar Knights for appreciating all our beards. So, present in the post for him, obviously, from courtesy of the Rangers Journal. But thanks very much for everybody tuning in. And see you next time. All the best from us at the Rangers Journal. Have a good evening.